Long ago, beyond the rolling hills of Elderglen, there stood a forgotten manor known as Blackthorn House. People avoided it, not because it was haunted, not because it was cursed, because it was strange. Very strange. Travelers who spent the night there often reported impossible things. Rooms that changed places, doors leading somewhere else, portraits that seemed to move when nobody was looking. Most people dismissed the stories. Most people. Except a 16-year-old boy named Rowan. Rowan loved mysteries. The stranger, the better. While other boys dreamed of becoming knights or adventurers, Rowan dreamed of discovering secrets, and Blackthorn House was full of them. So, when an elderly lawyer arrived in Elderglen carrying a letter addressed to him, Rowan became very interested, especially when he learned the letter came from someone who had died 50 years ago. The lawyer looked uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. As impossible as this sounds, he said, the instructions were quite specific. He handed Rowan the envelope. The seal bore the image of a silver mirror. Inside was a single note. To Rowan Ashford. If this letter has reached you, the mirror has awakened. Come to Blackthorn House before the next new moon. Come alone, and whatever happens, do not trust your reflection. Rowan read the message twice, then 3 times. The warning made no sense, which immediately made him curious. 3 days later, he arrived at Blackthorn House. The manor stood upon a lonely hill surrounded by ancient trees. Its windows reflected the evening sun. Its towers stretched into darkening skies. And somehow, it felt as though the house were watching him. The massive front door opened before he even knocked. That should have worried him. Instead, it fascinated him. Inside, dust covered everything. Grand staircases, crystal chandeliers, ancient paintings. The house looked abandoned, yet strangely untouched, as though someone had left only yesterday. Rowan wandered deeper inside, room after room, hall after hall, until he discovered something unusual. A locked door hidden behind a faded tapestry. Unlike everything else in the manor, this door was spotless. No dust, no cobwebs, no signs of age. Upon it was the same silver mirror symbol from the letter. The moment Rowan touched the handle, the lock clicked open, slowly, silently. The room beyond was circular, empty, except for one object, a mirror. A gigantic silver mirror reaching from floor to ceiling. Its surface shimmered like liquid moonlight. Rowan stepped closer. His reflection stared back, perfectly normal. For several seconds, then it smiled. Rowan froze because he hadn't smiled. The reflection continued smiling, and then it blinked. A second later, Rowan's heart stopped. His reflection raised a hand, but Rowan hadn't moved. The boy inside the mirror was moving on his own, watching him, studying him. Then the reflection spoke. Finally, the mirror rippled like water disturbed by a stone. The reflection stepped forward, out of the mirror, into the room. Rowan stumbled backward. The boy standing before him looked exactly like him. Same face, same eyes, same voice, except for one thing. His eyes were silver, completely silver. The reflection smiled. "I've been waiting a very long time." A cold wind swept through the room. The mirror began glowing, and beyond its surface, Rowan glimpsed something impossible. A vast kingdom. Castles made of crystal, floating towers, silver rivers winding through endless skies. An entire world hidden inside the mirror. The silver-eyed boy looked toward it, then back at Rowan, and spoke the words that changed everything. "The Mirror Kingdom is dying." The glowing world flickered. For a brief moment, Rowan thought he saw armies marching beneath dark skies, a black crown, a broken throne, and a shadow enormous enough to swallow cities. The silver-eyed boy's smile vanished. For the first time, he looked afraid. "And if we don't save it?" The mirror cracked. A jagged fracture raced across its surface. Something moved inside the darkness beyond. Something ancient. Something trying to get out. The reflection whispered, "It will come here next." The crack widened, and from somewhere deep inside the Mirror Kingdom, a horn sounded. The sound of war. The horn echoed through the Mirror Kingdom, deep, ancient, terrible. The sound rolled across crystal mountains and silver rivers beyond the mirror. Then silence returned, a heavy silence, the kind that comes before a storm. Rowan stared at the silver-eyed boy standing before him. The boy looked exactly like him. Exactly. The same dark hair, the same face, the same voice. It was like staring into a living reflection, except for those eyes, those strange silver eyes. "Who are you?" The question escaped Rowan before he could stop it. The reflection smiled faintly. "A fair question." He placed a hand against the mirror. Silver ripples spread across its surface. "My name is Riven." The Mirror Kingdom shimmered behind him, and I'm what remains of your reflection. Rowan blinked. "What does that even mean?" Riven sighed. "It means this explanation is going to be complicated." The mirror cracked again. A second fracture spread across the silver glass. Riven immediately became serious. Later, his eyes shifted toward the widening crack. Questions later. The horn sounded again, closer this time. The kingdom beyond the mirror darkened. Something enormous moved beneath distant storm clouds. Riven extended his hand. "We have to go." Rowan looked towards the glowing kingdom, then towards the crack, then towards Riven. Any sensible person would have run. Any sensible person would have left the manor immediately. Unfortunately, Rowan was not a sensible person. He took the offered hand. The mirror exploded into silver light. The crossing. For one brief moment, Rowan felt himself falling, not downward, everywhere. The world twisted, colors blended, time seemed to stretch like melted glass. Then he landed, softly, upon silver grass. Rowan opened his eyes and forgot how to breathe. The Mirror Kingdom stretched endlessly before him. Crystal cities floated among clouds. Silver forests sparkled beneath twin moons. Great rivers flowed through the sky itself. Bridges of glass connected floating islands. Everywhere he looked, beauty surrounded him. Beautiful, impossible, and broken. Because cracks ran through everything. The sky, the rivers, the mountains, even the air seemed fractured. As though reality itself were splintering, Rowan slowly stood. What happened here? Riven's expression darkened. The king disappeared. The answer felt strangely important. The king? Riven nodded. King Aurelian. The name seemed to echo through the air. Ancient, powerful. For centuries he protected the kingdom. A distant castle appeared on the horizon. Its silver towers pierced the clouds. Yet even from here, Rowan could see damage. Cracks. Darkness. Something had wounded the kingdom deeply. Then Riven spoke again. 5 years ago, he vanished. The wind grew colder. Without the king, the barriers weakened. The cracks appeared. A pause. And then, the Hollow King returned. The name sent chills through Rowan, even before he knew why. The sky darkened slightly. The silver grass trembled, as though the kingdom itself feared the name. What is the Hollow King? Riven looked toward the distant horizon. Far away, black clouds gathered around a mountain of shattered mirrors. A nightmare. The answer came softly. A king who once tried to conquer every reflection in existence. A crack of black lightning split the sky. 1,000 years ago, King Aurelian imprisoned him beyond the mirror gates. Riven's voice lowered. Now the prison is breaking. The horn sounded again, this time much closer. Then, suddenly, a bell rang, clear, sharp, urgent. Riven froze. Oh no. The silver-eyed boy turned toward the nearest city. Far in the distance, crystal towers flashed red, warning lights, alarm signals. Something was happening. Something bad. Very bad. A flock of glass birds burst into the sky. Citizens began running through the streets below. Fear spread rapidly. Then a voice echoed across the kingdom. Magical, powerful, filled with panic. The northern gate has fallen. The announcement repeated again and again. The northern gate has fallen. The sky cracked. A massive fracture appeared among the clouds, and through it came darkness. Not ordinary darkness, living darkness. A shadow army. Thousands upon thousands of black figures marching through the broken sky. The Hollow King's soldiers. Rowan stared in horror. They were coming. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. Riven grabbed his arm. We have to reach the Crystal Citadel. The distant castle gleamed on the horizon. Before they do. The ground suddenly shook. A massive shadow moved behind the clouds. Something gigantic. Something with burning blue eyes. Watching. Waiting. The Hollow King had noticed Rowan's arrival, and judging by the smile slowly appearing within the darkness, he had been waiting for Rowan too.
The sky was breaking.
Massive fractures spread across the heavens like cracks in shattered glass. Darkness poured through them. An endless army of shadows marched from the broken horizon. The Hollow King's forces, and they were advancing fast. Riven grabbed Rowan's arm. "Run!" The two boys sprinted across the silver fields. Behind them, distant alarm bells echoed throughout the Mirror Kingdom. Citizens fled toward fortified cities. Crystal guardians took defensive positions along shining walls. Above them, glass birds carried urgent messages through the air. Everywhere Rowan looked, preparations for war had begun. The kingdom wasn't preparing for an invasion, it was preparing for a final stand. The Crystal Citadel rose ahead, a magnificent castle built entirely from silver crystal. Its towers stretched into the clouds, its walls reflected the entire kingdom. For a brief moment, Rowan understood why it had survived for centuries. It looked indestructible. Then he noticed the cracks. Even here, even at the heart of the kingdom, the damage was spreading. The Hollow King's corruption had reached everywhere. As they crossed the great bridge leading to the citadel, enormous crystal gates opened. Guards rushed forward. They wore armor made of mirrored silver. Each carried a spear that glowed with moon-like light. The captain stopped immediately upon seeing Rowan. Not Riven, Rowan. The guard's eyes widened. Then he dropped to one knee. Every other guard followed. The bridge fell silent. Rowan blinked. What are they doing? Riven looked uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. That's not a good sign. Before Rowan could ask why, a voice echoed from above. "Bring him inside." The voice was calm, powerful, elegant. Everyone obeyed instantly. The Hall of Reflections. Moments later, Rowan entered the grandest room he had ever seen, the Hall of Reflections. Thousands of mirrors lined the walls. Each reflected a different part of the kingdom. Silver forests, crystal cities, floating islands, every corner of the realm. And at the far end of the hall stood a throne carved from living crystal. Upon it sat a woman, the Mirror Queen, Queen Seraphine. Her silver crown shimmered like starlight. Her long white hair flowed over crystal robes, yet her eyes immediately captured Rowan's attention. One eye was blue, the other was silver, exactly like Riven's. The queen stared at Rowan, not with surprise, not with curiosity, with relief, as though she had been waiting years to see him. "You finally arrived." Rowan frowned. Everyone seemed to know him, which was becoming increasingly frustrating. "I have absolutely no idea what's happening." To his surprise, the queen smiled. A genuine smile. "Neither did your father." The room became silent. Rowan froze. "My father?" The queen slowly stood. For the first time, sadness appeared in her expression. 5 years ago, a man from your world entered the Mirror Kingdom. A terrible feeling formed in Rowan's stomach. His name was Rowan Ashford. His father, the father who had disappeared 5 years ago, without an explanation, without a trace. The father everyone believed was dead. The queen looked toward one of the mirrors. Its surface rippled. An image appeared. A man, smiling, holding a younger Rowan on his shoulders. Rowan's breath caught. It was him, his father. Older, tired, but unmistakably alive. He wasn't lost. The queen's voice softened. He came here. The mirrors shifted again. Now Rowan saw his father standing beside King Orion, the missing king. the ruler of the Mirror Kingdom. The two men appeared to be friends, allies. The image faded. Rowan struggled to speak. "Where is he now?" The queen didn't answer immediately, and that frightened him more than anything. Finally, she whispered, "We don't know." Silence. The words struck harder than he expected, because uncertainty can sometimes hurt more than grief. The queen approached slowly. When King Orion disappeared, the mirrors around the hall darkened. Your father vanished the same night. A distant explosion echoed outside. The citadel shook. The war was getting closer, but Rowan barely noticed. His mind raced. His father had been here all this time. Then another question surfaced, a much more important one. Why does the Hollow King want me? The room instantly became tense. The queen's expression changed. Riven looked away. The guards exchanged nervous glances. Nobody wanted to answer, which meant the answer was bad. Very bad. At last, Queen Seraphine spoke. "Because you're the key bearer." The title meant nothing to Rowan. Unfortunately, it seemed to mean everything to everyone else. The mirrors lighting the hall suddenly illuminated. Thousands of reflections appeared. Different worlds, different realities, different versions of Rowan. Some were kings, some were adventurers, some were old, some were young. Infinite reflections, infinite possibilities. And at the center of them all stood Rowan. The queen's voice echoed through the chamber. "The key bearer can open the first mirror." The entire hall fell silent. The doorway from which all reflections were born. The mirrors trembled. The kingdom itself seemed to react. "If the Hollow King reaches it," the queen's voice became barely a whisper, "he won't merely conquer this kingdom." The mirrors cracked. A shadow appeared within them, watching, listening, smiling. The Hollow King. For the first time, Rowan saw him clearly, a towering figure wearing a shattered black crown. His eyes burned with blue fire. His cloak was woven from living darkness, and somehow he looked familiar, terribly familiar. Then the Hollow King spoke directly through every mirror at once. At last. The entire citadel shook. The Shadow King smiled, and his gaze locked onto Rowan. "The son of Elias Ashford." A crack split the throne room floor. Darkness erupted upward. The Hollow King's laughter echoed through every reflection. "Bring him to me." And suddenly, every mirror in the hall shattered. The throne room exploded into chaos. Thousands of shattered mirror fragments rained across the crystal floor. Darkness surged from the cracks. The Hollow King's laughter echoed through the citadel. "Bring him to me." Then, silence. The shadow vanished, but the damage remained. Cracks spread across the walls. The towers trembled. The entire kingdom seemed weaker than before. Queen Seraphine stared at the shattered mirrors. For the first time, she looked afraid. Not worried, afraid. And that terrified Rowan, because queens were not supposed to look afraid. Riven stepped beside him. "He's getting stronger." The queen nodded grimly. Far stronger. Outside, war horns sounded. The outer shadow army had reached the outer walls. Time was running out. Then, Queen Seraphine made a decision. She turned toward Rowan. "You deserve the truth." The room became silent. The queen raised her hand. Silver light filled the chamber. The broken mirrors lifted into the air. Thousands of fragments floated around them. Each fragment began showing memories, ancient memories, the beginning of everything. The first reflection. Long before the Mirror Kingdom existed, there was only one mirror, the first mirror, not created by kings, not created by magic, created by the universe itself. A doorway between possibilities, a place where every choice, every dream, every future created a reflection. The vision expanded. Rowan saw worlds forming, countless worlds, each one born from the first mirror. Every possibility, every reality, every version of existence. Then came the first ruler, King Aurelian, a guardian chosen to protect the first mirror. For centuries he succeeded, until another guardian betrayed him. The vision darkened. A second king appeared, tall, proud, powerful. His name had been erased from history. Only one title remained, the Hollow King. The future tyrant had once been Aurelian's closest friend, his brother in all but blood. Together they protected the first mirror, until they disagreed. The Hollow King believed the first mirror should be controlled, used, ruled. Aurelian refused. A war followed, a terrible war, one that nearly shattered reality itself. Eventually, the Hollow King was defeated, imprisoned beyond the mirror gates. The vision faded, and Rowan finally understood. The Hollow King wasn't merely trying to conquer a kingdom. He wanted control over every reality, every world, every possibility. Then Rowan asked the question haunting him. "What does this have to do with my father?" Silence. The queen closed her eyes. Then another mirror fragment floated forward. A new memory appeared. 5 years ago, Rowan's father standing inside the crystal citadel, beside King Aurelian. The two men studied an ancient map. The map showed a single location. A distant island floating beyond the edge of the Mirror Kingdom. A place labeled the First Mirror. Rowan stared. His father had found it. The queen's voice trembled. The Hollow King's prison began breaking 5 years ago. The memory continued. King Aurelian looked worried. Rowan's father looked determined. Then both men stepped through a portal toward the first mirror and vanished. The vision ended. They never returned. The words struck like thunder. His father had not abandoned him, had not disappeared willingly. He had gone to save worlds and never came back. For a moment, Rowan couldn't speak. Then Riven quietly said, "There's more." The silver-eyed boy looked uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. The queen looked away, which was never a good sign. "What more?" Riven hesitated, then pointed toward a mirror fragment. The fragment drifted closer and showed something impossible. A nursery, a baby,
a newborn child sleeping peacefully. Rowan. The queen smiled sadly. The day you were born. The image shifted. King Orion stood beside the cradle. Rowan froze. The king was there, the ruler of the Mirror Kingdom, watching over him. Then King Orion placed a silver mark upon the baby's forehead, a glowing symbol, a key. The vision vanished. The room fell silent. What was that? The queen's answer came softly. The key-bearer's mark. Rowan felt cold, very cold. Why would the king do that? Nobody answered immediately, because the answer was worse than he expected, much worse. Finally, Queen Seraphine whispered, "Because he knew you would be the last key-bearer." The citadel suddenly shook, hard. A distant explosion echoed outside, then another and another. A guard burst into the throne room, breathless, terrified. "Your Majesty!" The guard nearly stumbled. "The outer wall has fallen!" Silence. The queen closed her eyes. The war had arrived. Then a second voice echoed through the shattered throne room, not from outside, not from the shadows, from one of the broken mirror fragments. A familiar voice, a voice Rowan had not heard in 5 years. Rowan. The entire room froze. Rowan's heart stopped. The fragment glowed brighter, the image sharpened. And there he was, Elias Ashford, his father, older, tired, alive, standing somewhere beyond a sea of silver mist. His eyes widened when he saw Rowan. Then he smiled, a proud smile, a relieved smile. "You found the kingdom." Rowan could barely breathe. "Dad?" The image flickered violently, as though fighting against distance, against time itself. Listen carefully. The mist behind him began moving. Something enormous lurked within it, something ancient, something awake. Elias's expression became urgent. "The first mirror is breaking." The image crackled, the connection weakened. "And the Hollow King is not the greatest danger." Silence. The room froze. Even Queen Seraphine looked shocked. Then Elias spoke the words that changed everything. "King Orion is alive." The mist exploded behind him. A colossal silver eye opened within the fog, watching, waiting, and somehow it looked far more frightening than the Hollow King. The image shattered. Darkness filled the fragment. The connection was gone, leaving only one terrifying question behind. If King Orion was alive, what had he become?
The crystal citadel trembled. Outside, the war raged. Inside, silence filled the throne room. Only one thought remained in Rowan's mind. King Orion is alive. The king, the guardian, the hero, alive, and somehow more dangerous than the Hollow King. It made no sense, yet the fear in his father's voice had been real. Queen Seraphine slowly lowered her head, as though she had feared this truth for years. Then it has finally happened. Riven looked toward her. What has? The queen's eyes filled with sorrow. The first mirror has begun changing him. terrible silence followed. Then Rowan understood. His father and King Orion had never failed their mission. They had reached the first mirror, and something had gone wrong, very wrong. The journey beyond reflections. Hours later, Rowan, Riven, and Queen Seraphine stood upon the highest tower of the citadel. Below them, the Shadow Army surrounded the kingdom. The Hollow King's banners stretched across the horizon. Thousands, perhaps millions, waiting, preparing. The final battle would begin by sunrise, unless Rowan succeeded first. At the center of the tower floated an ancient portal, silver, golden, endless, a doorway leading beyond the Mirror Kingdom, to the birthplace of all reflections, the first mirror. Queen Seraphine placed a hand upon Rowan's shoulder. "Whatever happens there," her voice trembled, "remember who you are." The portal opened. Light exploded outward, and Rowan stepped through. The sea of reflections. The world vanished, then returned. Rowan stood upon an endless silver ocean, the sea of reflections. There was no sky, no horizon, only mirrors stretching forever. Each mirror showed a different reality, different worlds, different lives, different choices, infinite possibilities. At the center of the sea stood a single island. Upon it rose the first mirror. It towered higher than mountains, higher than castles, higher than imagination itself. A colossal mirror reflecting every world ever created. And before it stood two figures. One wore a shattered black crown, the Hollow King. The other wore silver armor cracked by centuries. King Orion, at last, the missing king, the guardian, the legend. But something was wrong, terribly wrong. Silver light flowed from the first mirror into Orion, constantly, endlessly. His eyes glowed like stars. His body shimmered with impossible power. And behind him floated thousands of reflections, versions of himself, hundreds, thousands, millions. The king had become connected to every reflection, every possibility, every reality. The burden was destroying him. Orion looked toward Rowan. His voice echoed across existence. Another key bearer. The first mirror trembled. The sea of reflections shook violently. The Hollow King laughed. At last! His shadow army emerged from broken mirrors. Endless darkness, endless soldiers, endless war. The final battle had begun. The truth. Orion raised his hand. Instantly, everything froze. The sea, the armies, the skyless horizon, time itself paused. Only Rowan remained free. Only Rowan. The king approached, slowly, sadly. "I was wrong." The words shocked Rowan. The greatest king in history looked exhausted, broken, human. "I thought I could protect every world." The first mirror brightened. Countless realities appeared around them. Worlds, lives, dreams. Too many, too many. So I bound myself to the mirror. Orion looked toward the endless reflections, and I became its prisoner. The truth finally emerged. The first mirror was not breaking, it was overflowing. too many worlds, too many possibilities. Reality itself could no longer sustain them. Something had to change. Then Rowan understood why he had been chosen, why he was the key-bearer, not to protect the first mirror, to make a choice, the final choice. The last key. The key mark upon Rowan's forehead began glowing, brighter, brighter, until the entire sea of reflections shone like a star. The first mirror responded. A doorway opened within its surface. A choice appeared. One path would preserve every reflection, but eventually destroy all realities beneath their weight. The other would allow the first mirror to release countless reflections, reducing infinite possibilities, saving existence itself. Neither choice was perfect. Both required sacrifice. The Hollow King stepped forward. Keep them all. His eyes burned with hunger. Every kingdom, every possibility, every world. Power, control, endlessness. That was his answer. Then Orion spoke. Let them go. His voice carried sorrow. Save what remains. The sea of reflections waited. Reality waited. The universe waited for Rowan. At last, he stepped toward the first mirror and made his choice. Not all possibilities are meant to exist forever. The mirror responded. Light erupted across eternity. The sea of reflections transformed. Millions of unnecessary reflections faded peacefully, not destroyed, released, returning to the universe from which they came. The burden vanished. The first mirror stabilized. Reality healed. The cracks disappeared. The mirror kingdom brightened. Across countless worlds, balance returned. And for the first time in centuries, King Orion smiled. A real smile. A peaceful smile. Then the guardian dissolved into silver starlight. His duty complete. His watch finally ended. The Hollow King fell to his knees, not defeated by force, defeated by understanding, because control had never been the answer. Balance had. The shadow crown crumbled, the darkness faded, and the Hollow King disappeared into the endless light, not as a monster, as a man finally freed from his own ambition. 1 year later, the Mirror Kingdom flourished. The cracks were gone. The skies shone bright. The crystal cities sparkled once more. Queen Seraphine ruled wisely. Riven became the kingdom's first ambassador of reflections. And Rowan finally returned home. But not forever, because some doors never truly close. And sometimes, when moonlight struck a mirror just right, a silver-eyed friend could still be seen waving from the other side. And Rowan would smile, knowing that somewhere beyond the glass, an entire kingdom still existed, watching, dreaming, reflecting. Every reflection begins with a single light. Every choice creates a new path. And every ending becomes the beginning of another story. For the greatest mirror does not show us who we are, it shows us who we can become.